Imagine lying in bed, thinking you're completely alone, when you suddenly feel the mattress sink beside you, followed by the hot breath of someone who should not be there. It started with a sound no one wants to hear when they're alone. A slow creak, like the groan of old wood under pressure. Then another, and another. The kind of sound that forces your heart into your throat, because you know you're not imagining it. Sarah wasn't supposed to be alone that night. Her best friend Emily had booked a small countryside house just outside Willow Creek, California, to celebrate her 21st birthday. They didn't want to trash Emily's mom's place, so they rented this secluded spot surrounded by vineyards and woods, far from neighbors and noise complaints. The plan was simple: a weekend of loud music, drinks, and no one to bother them. But plans have a way of falling apart. The house itself looked like something straight out of an old horror film, 2 stories, with peeling paint on the shutters, a long gravel driveway leading up to a porch that sagged slightly in the middle. Inside, it smelled faintly of damp wood and old stone. When they arrived earlier in the afternoon, the owner, an older woman with a strange smile, had given them a quick tour. 3 bedrooms upstairs, 1 downstairs, a big living room, a kitchen that looked like it hadn't been remodeled in decades, and a bathroom tucked near the back. "You'll be all alone out here," the woman had said with a chuckle before leaving, almost like she was teasing them. Sarah laughed it off at the time, but the words replayed in her head hours later. At first, the night had gone fine, even if it didn't turn into the big party they'd expected. Emily showed up late, and most of the invited friends canceled. In the end, it was just Sarah, Emily, and Emily's cousin Claire. Disappointing, sure, but they made the most of it. Loud music, cheap wine, junk food. They opened a window in the living room to let the smoke out, leaving the wooden shutter half closed, dangling on its rusty hook. Around 10 p.m., Claire and Emily decided they were starving and drove off to pick up food from the nearest town. It was almost an hour away. Sarah didn't want to go. She wasn't feeling well, too much cheap vodka maybe, and she offered to stay behind and keep the house locked up. Alone now, she went upstairs, washed off her makeup in the small bathroom, and tried to relax. That's when she heard it, the sound from downstairs. The floorboards creaking under weight. At first, she told herself it had to be her friends. Maybe they'd forgotten their wallets or keys. But when she called out, no one answered. Silence. Her stomach tightened. Maybe it was just the wind rattling the old house. Maybe she was just tipsy. She tried to brush it off, but her unease grew when she went back downstairs and noticed the window. The shutter was no longer hanging loosely on its hook. It had been forced wide open. A cold draft rolled through the room. Sarah's pulse hammered. She shut the window, locked it, and told herself she was overreacting. Still, she texted Emily to come back quickly, but the message failed to send. No signal. Her phone showed 1 tiny bar that blinked in and out. Trying to calm down, Sarah decided to check each room one by one. She moved through the kitchen, the living room, the downstairs bedroom, nothing. Then she went upstairs. Her stuff was scattered on the bed, like someone had rummaged through it. A small can of deodorant she'd dropped earlier caught her eye, and she bent down to pick it up, her hand trembling. She told herself she was just imagining things. She turned off the light, climbed into bed, and tried to nap while she waited for her friends to return. But sleep wouldn't come. Minutes dragged by, and then she heard it, faint tapping from underneath her bed, like someone knocking gently on the wooden frame. Her body froze. Each tap vibrated through the mattress. She didn't move, didn't breathe. Then came the unmistakable feeling, the mattress sagging near her legs, like someone pressing down from underneath. Her throat locked in terror. She couldn't scream, couldn't move. And then a hot breath against the back of her neck. Something was there, right behind her. Acting on pure instinct, Sarah grabbed the deodorant can from the floor, snapped the cap off, and sprayed backward blindly while rolling off the bed. She heard a sharp grunt, followed by a cough. She didn't look back. She bolted out of the room, down the stairs, and into the bathroom on the first floor. She slammed the door, locked it, and pressed her weight against it. A second later, fists pounded against the wood, shaking it violently. A man's voice screamed obscenities on the other side. Her whole body shook as the flimsy lock rattled in its socket. The thin metal bolt looked ready to snap. Without thinking, she threw open the small bathroom window, squeezed through, and dropped into the cold dirt outside. She didn't stop to catch her breath. She ran, barefoot, across the gravel driveway into the darkness of the vineyard. Branches scratched her arms and face, stones cut her feet, but she kept running until she spotted another house far across the field. Its windows were dark, no sign of life. She couldn't keep running forever, and the man was still behind her. She could hear his shouts echoing across the vines. Desperate, she pulled open a large compost bin near the back of the house and climbed inside, gagging at the stench. She pulled the lid down and curled into a ball. The world shrank to the sound of her heartbeat and the faint crunch of footsteps moving closer. She lowered the brightness on her phone to nothing and flicked it silent. A single bar of service appeared. With trembling fingers, she remembered something. In the US, you could text 911 if you couldn't talk. She typed frantically, explaining she was being chased, giving the address of the rental house she'd seen earlier. Almost instantly, a dispatcher texted back, "Help is on the way. Stay hidden. Stay quiet." Sarah pressed the phone to her chest. She heard footsteps crunching closer, circling the yard. They stopped just feet away from the compost bin. She held her breath until her lungs burned, praying he wouldn't think to look inside. Minutes passed like hours. Finally, sirens. The distant wail of police cars cutting through the night. The footsteps retreated. Then heavy boots, men shouting. A voice calling her name. The lid of the bin lifted, and a flashlight blinded her eyes. "You're safe now," an officer said. She broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. But the nightmare wasn't over. Later, she learned the truth. The man who had been in the house wasn't a random intruder. He was the son of the property owner. He knew the layout of the house by heart. He'd grown up in it. He knew people would be renting it that weekend, young women celebrating with no one around for miles. He also had a record of violent past, charges of assault and sexual crimes. The police had been looking for him in connection with another case. Sarah survived only because of her instincts, her quick thinking, and a stroke of luck with that single bar of cell service. But even after he was arrested, even after she was told she was safe, she admitted later that she couldn't close her eyes at night without seeing that moment again. The mattress sagging beside her and the hot breath on her neck.